Welcome back, everybody, to the 2018 Pokemon Video Game Regional Championships here in Portland, Oregon. We are currently taking a quick break before the finals, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the top 8.
Yeah, so far it's been Gardevoir's day. We've had 6 matches on stream so far. 4 of them have featured a Gardevoir. Gardevoir's won all 4 times.
I streamed all 4 of those.
Again, you're the one person that should be so excited because Gardevoir was your choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only so many Hyper Voice animations I can watch before I go, oh, it might have been good to have a little variety, but it's really nice to see. I think, I mean, I've just sort of been saying this over and over again, but that Amoonguss and Incineroar both existing gives such a good framework for Gardevoir to be able to just use Hyper Voice all of the time. And Incineroar gives this great defensive coverage, it gives great support, it even gives great offensive coverage because you've got the Fire Fairy, which it hits almost everything really effectively.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about that in the pregame, I believe, about how good Gardevoir would be with Incineroar. It just opened up the doors, right? It just opened up the doors for it.
We've seen 2 matches so far that were Gardevoir versus kind of the Manectric Snorlax support stuff that's been very popular so far this season. And it seems like a pretty clean matchup in Gardevoir's favor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Those teams have to adapt. They're not ready for any type of really strong spread move at all. They were very much focused on whittling away more physical attacks, and then if anything even remotely special, scary was out, you just snarl it. But it's not enough here. You've seen Gardevoir just not care about snarl so many times, and then a lot of players are just like, well, now that that's snarl, I'm going to go over here, and then it just stays there and hyper voices you for like 2 more turns.
Can we talk a little bit about the match where that Celesteela tried to hide behind a cell, but that Hyper Voice, just because it's sound-based, just went right through it and just didn't even break this up, just damaged it right off the bat.
Yeah, just like using Amoonguss to keep Gardevoir alive and then just saying, yeah, you're at 50% health with a sub. I don't care about the sub.
Just bypassing it thanks to the sound-based mechanic.
That was pretty impressive, just that Gardevoir can scream long enough that even when it's resisted, you've still got like the Pixelate boost, you've still got stab, and if you attack enough, you're still going to do a lot of damage because that Celesteela didn't have any recovery.
That's what it seemed like in that last game was just all these very bulky Pokemon on Gary's side, but so many Hyper Voices came out. They were just whittled away to nothing. So many berries eaten. The Hyper Voice missing hundreds of percentage of damage over the course of that game.
And the fact that Gardevoir has access to Trick Room. You know, one of a lot of people will just try to underspeed Gardevoir, set up Trick Room, but then Gardevoir, it's actually fairly specially bulky too and can just reverse any Trick Room that comes up, so it functions in whatever speed control it prefers.
Yeah, the other factor is just that like Heatran no longer exists in the format right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was one of the #1 things where, I mean, if you 2 times resist Fairy, it might still do some damage. When you have a 4 times resist, like you can sort of ignore the Gardevoir, but then that's just sort of fallen off so far that now Gardevoir is safe hyper voicing. Like Incineroar is a bit annoying for Gardevoir to face, but it still takes a bunch from hyper voicing.
Yeah, it's still neutral damage. I mean, there just aren't all of these Fairy resists, and I think Incineroar is a big part of that, because it suppresses a lot of these steel types and makes it much easier for Gardevoir to have optimal matchups all the time.
I mean, you should just bite into it at this point, really. It is scary for your steel types, but I think if you look forward into the metagame a little bit, you're going to see people acknowledge that and just try and build around it. It's something that's so, I mean, it's done so well today that if you ignore it, you're not going to improve at all. You have to just kind of roll with the punches and just build around it.
So that's what's happened so far. Now in the finals, Gardevoir has to lose because there's 2 of them.
Well, that's like a wash. It's just like, it's a gentleman's agreement. It doesn't count.
So these players are pretty familiar with their teams, right? Hayden, do you have any insight on how prepared they may be for this?
Ooh, I don't know if they've thought as much about finals. I think they were sort of like planning their top 8 and top 4 together. I guess whatever they're able to do in this 10 minutes is going to be really important. Adrian has a bit of an advantage because he got the opportunity to watch How play, and he had a while to sort of plan that, whereas How sort of has to jump straight from one game into another. I'm not sure how the matchup's going to work. They've both got pretty similar, like just the Amoonguss and Incineroar Gardevoir, which is sort of what we talked about as the important part. But then I guess having the Snorlax on Adrian's side seems really helpful. Although Aegislash is going to be pretty scary. We talked about Fairy Resist. Aegislash is #1 of those.
Yeah, Aegislash is a great one, especially because it also then has that Shadow Ball to hit Gardevoir back really hard, or Never Ending Nightmare.
Yeah, you can't even protect against it, or you'll still take like half your HP.
But then, of course, you know, Howe's team was actually anchored by the Aegislash too, right? There's an Aegislash on that team, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so then you can just kind of counter it and just Never Ending Nightmare it back.
Oh, well, there's one Aegislash, one not Aegislash. Adrian doesn't have an Aegislash.
Adrian doesn't have the Aegislash?
No.
No.
All right, then. Looks like Aegislash is going to come to the foray.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? And that means he's got to be watching out for Incineroar the entire time. Makes Incineroar much more valuable if it's going to be the answer to your opponent's best answer.
It'll also be interesting to see if they bring their Tapus to the matchup, because both sides have a Mungus, and you got to be a little scared of that Spore. But then Finny isn't really too happy against a Mungus or the Coco that exists. And so if they both bring their Tapus, then the Coco's definitely a lot happier than the Tapu Finny is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the primary factors you're going to see is how are these Pokemon trained. The speed is going to matter a lot, especially since so many of the same Pokemon creates these situations where normally you might encounter speed ties. So, like, if one trainer decided to go maybe for a bulkier spread, the first turn, like, if you're able to go 2 Hyper Voices before the other one gets 2, that could end up being very important for how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think House is faster, but I'm actually kind of guessing here. So I guess we'll have to just see when we start watching the match.
You mentioned Tapu Fini. I think it could be a valuable advantage just because it helps deal with Incineroar much better than with the Tapu Koko can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Gigavolt's still going to do a fair amount of damage, but with that Assault Vest on the Incineroar, definitely, I don't know what Adrian has to deal with the Incineroar.
It's also kind of staying power. I mean, one Flare Blitz is going to really bite into Tapu Koko, whereas Tapu Fini can more comfortably stay in on Incineroar for several turns while it has to break through that Assault Vest.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Tapu Koko is kind of more of like the fast and loose offense, but I think this matchup isn't really about that, and that's not really where it shines. It's going to be a lot of position-based sort of, I need this just a little, like, you need the inch to get the mile, basically, and that's going to happen pretty immediately. You're going to see that. I think you're going to see turns where one little bit of positioning is going to, like, just be huge for the player that gets it first.
You have to play it perfectly, pretty much. You can't allow your opponent to get any sort of advantage on the board, because at that point, you know, if you try to adjust yourself on that board, you're just going to be taking Hyper Voices.
Yeah, you saw what happened to Gary when he ended up on the back foot, constantly having to switch, and that just means more Hyper Voices come out. And then, well, then those things aren't really bulky enough to deal with Gardevoir anymore either, and you just kind of in this cycle of never-ending Hyper Voice.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the Snorlax in the previous game. It just belly drummed, and then it's like, oh, no, I got to get out of here. And then it switched out, switched back in, and took a Hyper Voice. It's like, well, now what? Snorlax is too slow to function. So, again, you know, these games are going to be so tight. It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to who can, first off, you know, you got to be able to predict your opponent, and then you're going to have to be able to just maintain that position. You can't let up at all.
I mean, never-ending Hyper Voice is quite the nightmare for me.
Oh, I see.
I see what you did there, Kimo.
Oh,
I see.
you?
I see what he did there.
I'm glad you did.
I mean, I guess that is 2 different Pokemon moves.
Yeah, but like in one. But both those Pokemon like are together.
He sort of like it summarized our whole discussion. He divided everything together. It was an excellent pun.
That's what I do.
Can I just point out that none of our smart monies are in the finals?
I should have made my smart money Gardevoir. I didn't, but I almost did. I wanted to stick with River because River's a pretty cool player, but I should have looked at Hyper Voice.
They got 2 choices. We only got 1. So let's not just group it like, oh, our smart money didn't work.
Okay, that's fair. We got top 8.
Yeah, we got top 8.
Our smart money's got more CP than yours.
Oh, yeah. Boom.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure yesterday when I put down my original smart money after the top cut was an exciting top 8, and that's what we saw.
Oh, that's true. I feel
pretty sure.
My smart money will be that there will be a tournament and finals will happen.
Well,
that's pretty good smart money.
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah. Actually, maybe I'll do that next time.
No,
right?
you should. I recommend it.
Oh, man. But
could use 0 to 0 odds.
0 to hero, just like that.
One thing that I'd like to mention is that, you know, if you look at the juniors and seniors division, which we got to see today, how those megas are still, you know, the whole Metagross, Charizard type deal. Whereas over here in the Masters division, we are seeing a lot more Gardevoir, you know. Mega Metagross is a force to deal with. It's actually a pretty decent counter to Gardevoir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll see some usage in Metagross in the future to help combat with Gardevoir.
Yeah, I think, did we not see, we might not have seen as much in Incineroar in juniors and seniors.
Not nearly.
Not nearly enough, yeah.
So maybe it hasn't had much of an impact just yet on some of the lower age divisions. And so we're still in the steel stage of the meta game, and maybe the future is sort of like transition to
future state meta game.
I'm not giving up on Gardevoir in lower divisions.
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of the younger division stuff, a lot of it was very reminiscent of 2017. Faith's team in the junior division, Quinnen's team in the senior division, top 4. You know, like you saw Lily Cole, the dreaded combination. Many players not liking to place that too much. While Faith had a team that was just harkened back to that Dallas tournament in 2017, very popular in the top cut there. There's like a rate of transfer kind of for juniors and seniors. Things don't quite advance so quickly. So, I mean, and it makes a lot of sense. You have less players. When more people have more ideas, you kind of have like this growth, this accelerated growth rate.
Yeah. This large pool, yeah.
I think familiarity also ends up being a lot more important in lower age divisions because there's a lot more wild cards in terms of who you play in Swiss, and you have to do really well in Swiss, like always, to be able to make cut. And so, like, I think when I was in seniors, I played the same team across 2012 and 2013.
Oh, cool.
Like, just the same team both years, and just the familiarity was so important. And I think, like, Aaron Zeng would talk about that in his articles on, like, how to cut a regional in seniors.
No melodic.
Oh, I think that's kind of surprising.
Very little intimidate counter in this top 8.
No, you know what the intimidate counter is?
Gardevoir.
Yeah, special attackers. Not necessarily having to take advantage of a boost off the intimidate, but just attacking on the special side instead.
Yeah, I mean, spread special attackers, even if it's not Gardevoir, if you look at like the Seismitoad that also made top 8, that's just another big spread special attack coming off that life orb boost and rain boost to Muddy Water. It's kind of a similar pattern where if you don't care so much about the intimidate, you don't care so much about what's on the field, you can just keep clicking this spread move and getting a lot of valuable damage out of it.
I think that's going to be really tough, is sort of how to have physical attackers still exist if we've got so much intimidate. And like both of the intimidate Pokemon are physical attackers. Like I think we saw Adrian just switch to Special Landorus because he sort of just gave up on having physical attacks. And I
Special
guess, like,
Landorus is really cool though. Can't deny that. I thought it was an excellent set.
So all we've got is like the physical attackers that exist because they're there to like have intimidate, or Snorlax because it can belly drum and then it doesn't care about intimidate. And that's almost all of the physical attacking we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, Alberto's Sword Stance Landorus was kind of the same way. It was like, go ahead and intimidate. I'm going to move so fast that it won't matter.
And similar, like Landorus then providing intimidate. Also, we've also seen Salamence providing intimidate, then trying to Dragon Dance their way through the intimidates that fell onto them. You kind of have to both boost out of it and offer your own intimidate to really be like a threatening physical attacker.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the physical attackers do now opt for those boosting moves, right? Like Snorlax obviously always has that boosting belly drum or curse or whatever setup move choice it really wants, and then Salamence with the Dragon Dance, Landorus with the Sword Dance. You know, you just got to try to beat those boosts, and you know, you kind of don't want to be in that position where you're stuck with your physical attacker. They're just dropping intimidates on you. You can't like get out of it, right? I mean, Kangaskhan previous formats, in a pinch, you could just power a punch to get pretty much a pseudo Sword Dance, right? Now it doesn't have access to that, and we saw it fizzle out.
I'm hoping we see some like crit abuse there, like some Z-Tail and Cart. You get the Leaf Blade. It doesn't matter how low your attack is.
I mean, we talked about that a little bit, how Z-Tail and Cartano's thing just to boost that critical hit ratio.
Yeah, we did see it at Costa Mesa as well, taking some pretty big advantage in the earlier turns there. One of the things that I think is pretty amusing, I'm happy about it personally, I did not see a single Lurantis.
I thought you wanted to see Lurantis.
No, I don't. I don't want to see Lurantis. Like, it makes sense. It's like, your Intimidate powers me up. But it's at the same time, it's like, thanks, Fire type. I'm like, you're really helping me out. Like, it makes sense in that you're powering up, but the thing you're powering up from still beats you.
Well, but you're a Grass type, and you beat the Fire type when you have the speed advantage. Like, you've got superpower,
But what
too.
if you don't have the speed advantage?
Yeah,
well, a lot of them did. It's like, I think Lurantis is, like, very naturally slow. So if you have, like, Trick Room, cool, like, you did it. But there's many situations, and you saw it in Charlotte, where it was like, my Lurantis is out. Oh, never mind. Like, thanks, Flare Blitz.
You guys are...
Maybe you just need to throw a bulldoze in there.
You guys are living in 2017. I'm living in 2014 here. I'm thinking Malamar.
I think Malamar could be really cool, but I did look into it before this tournament, and I was shocked to see that Lurantis actually has better stats than Malamar.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
It has good stats. It's a good Pokemon.
Yeah, it like actually has pretty decent stats. I was like, I had no idea what Lurantis stats were before last week, but I was like, oh, Malamar, it's like, it got knockoff and stuff. That must be cool. And then it was like, looking at it like, oh, maybe not.
I forgot who tweeted it, but somebody reminded me once that Amoonguss actually has about the same attack stat as a Talonflame or something like that, which is kind of surprising.
Talonflame's like a wimp. I mean, Talonflame, back when it was like strong, it was getting away with high base power moves as opposed to like using its actual attack stat.
I mean, Amoonguss gets Solar Beam.
But does it get Solar Blade?
No.
Oh, well, there you go. The attack stat not powering up that Solar Beam too much.
The finals are ready to start. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but when we come back, well, we're just going to take a couple seconds, but when we come back, here we are with the finals at the Portland Regional Championships. Stay tuned.